In this lesson, we're going to look at what inflation and deflation are. And it's really important to remember what wealth is while we're going through this lesson. Remember, wealth is labor. Wealth is the goods and produce, the services we make. It's the TVs, it's the cars, it's the food. You have more of that, you are wealthy. So just remember, that's the wealth, not money. So the inflation and deflation, it is simply a balance. The entire economy is a balance of how much money you have and how much supply of goods and services you have. And demand is also in this balance as well. But we're just going to look at the supply of money versus the supply of goods, just to keep it simple. So if the supply of money goes up, the supply of goods goes up to keep up with that money because there's more money around chasing it. So they have to have that balance. So they chase each other to keep that balance. If the supply of money keeps going up and up, the price of goods go up and up. And what can happen here is a psychological shift. If you go to the shops and you see prices going up daily, you're going to start spending more because you know things are going to get expensive. So you want to lock in the prices of today. So when that psychological shift happens, when people start spending more and more and more, this increases this phenomenon. You get inflation going higher and higher. So instead of the goods chasing the money is then chasing the goods. So then you have to print the money faster and faster, and you have a horrible situation where the prices just keep going up and up because people have had that psychological shift. And that's how you get into hyperinflation. Without that psychological shift, you don't go into hyperinflation. You stay in inflation. Stagflation, dragflation, just any kind of high inflation. Okay, and so deflation is the opposite. For example, if the quantity of money goes down, the price of the goods go down as well because there's less money chasing it. So the prices of goods have to go down. And this is what you normally see in debt crisis, a debt collapse, which is what the Great Depression was, when prices kept going down because all the debt was crashing. So it meant the supply of money was going down and prices were going down. And if prices are going down, it just means people are going to lose jobs because people spend less. It's all about that psychological shift. If you think prices are going down, you're going to spend less. You're going to try and save it, which means less money going into the system. So the best thing is when it's stable. When the currency is stable and the goods stay around the same price. It doesn't change much if the goods and services don't change much in their supply either. The only thing that then changes the prices would be demand. If something's high demand, it goes up in price. If something is low demand, it goes low in price. So it's mostly the supply of the money that changes a lot, where it really messes things up. Okay, so let's have a look at an analogy I made. It's a mini economy. It's very popular. You'll see some kind of mini economy analogy when they talk about inflation and deflation. So in my mini economy, you've got 5 citizens stuck on an island. All they have in that island are 5 shells. That's it. Now, shells themselves, they're not that useful. So what they've done is that those shells are now money. It's currency. And you have one guy who keeps coming to this island, and he has 5 coconuts each day to sell the people on the island. So if they have 1 shell each that gets replenished every day, there's like some kind of source of shells, they walk down to the beach and and it's 5 shells each day. It's stable. And the person on the boat keeps coming to the island with 5 coconuts. It's stable. Each coconut keeps costing 1 shell each. Nice and simple. But the thing is, these people on the island, they're not rich. All they have is 1 coconut each time. So we're going to have a look at how this balance can change. Because remember, the economy is a fragile and malleable. Malleable means it just changes. Balance between the quantities of money, the shells, the demand, which is what the people want, and the supply, the coconuts. This phenomenon is called price discovery. So the price of the coconut is 1 shell. Because 1 shell, that's all they have, and the only product they can buy is the coconuts. Nice and simple. So let's have a look at this scenario. So you've got the boatman comes in with his 5 coconuts still. But This fella here, I'm going to put a circle around him. He found an extra source of shells. So instead of 5, he found extra 4. He's like, wow, look, I'm rich. And I've got my best friend here. I'm going to give him 2 of them. And we're going to be the richest people on the island. And this is what's happening today of QE. You have one person just increasing the supply of money and giving it to their friends. So now you have 2 people with 3 shells, 3 people with 1 shell. So what this guy does, he's rich. He wants more stuff. He doesn't want to eat 1 coconut a day. He wants to eat 2. So he buys 2 coconuts. Same with his friend. He buys 2 coconuts. And the way he does that, he doesn't spend only 1 shell. Because if he only bought it for 1 shell, the guy would be like, yeah, so I'm going to sell it to other guys. Keep it fair. But no, he incentivized the seller by saying, I'm going to buy 2 coconuts with 3 shells. So he's spending more. So now the coconuts are more expensive. And all that's left is 1 coconut, and they have to spend all their shells on 1 coconut now. So this increase in money supply has made a lot of people a lot poorer because the production hasn't kept up with the money supply. That's what's happening today with all of the money printed. It doesn't get distributed evenly. Instead, it just goes to the top rich people. That's why we have ultra rich people and a lot of people struggling, because the money stays up here and it's only the rich who benefit from it. And they're not benefiting from introducing any production. They're not putting anything valuable to the economy, to the nations at all. It's just extra money that benefits only them. Okay, so, but let's say this man, he's really nice. Instead of just giving it to his friend, he gives his extra source of shells to everyone. And he's found 5 shells to keep it even, just to make sure we've got our analogy going smoothly. So what happens now? They all still buy just 1 coconut each, because it's all even. They have 2 shells, they got more money, but are they wealthier? Do they have more stuff? No. They just have 1 coconut each. But instead of 1 shell, the coconut's costing, it costs 2 shells. That's it. So it went up in price. They got more money, but they're not wealthier. That's the illusion a lot of people fall into. It's called nominal confusion. When you get more money, but you're not getting more stuff. You think you're richer, but you're not. So you've got to be careful with this. And like I said before, if this happens too fast, there's a psychological shift and people just start and buy stuff in faster and faster and faster. And the prices have to go up faster and faster, and you get the hyperinflation. So you do not want this to happen too fast. Okay, but let's say instead of this guy here at the top, instead of him finding an extra source of wealth, they still just have this original source of just 5 shells a day. But we have an extra product. We got the boats here now too. And we got another salesman with bananas. He comes to the beach every day, or the island every day now, and sells 5 bananas. So because there's competition now, he's going to go, I'm going to sell you a banana. And they're like, we only have 1 shell. Sorry, we can't only buy 1 coconut. He's like, okay, that's okay. I will sell you a banana for half a shell. And the guy who sells the coconut's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can't get 1 shell anymore because there's not enough money. So I'm going to have to sell for half a shell too. And the guy's like, oh, it's okay. I'm still making a profit. It's okay. I can just do it. So now you have these people able to buy 2 things with 1 shell, because production has gone up and it's driven down the prices. And as long as the people selling the stuff can take the hit, or if it goes down the chain where everything else gets cheaper as well, then these people have gone richer. The money supply hasn't changed. They still got 1 shell, $1 a day if you want to say dollars. But they're richer. But a lot of people would think these people are richer because they got 2 shells. They got more money. But they're not. These people here are richer, even though they have less money than the people before, but they now have 2 goods. They're not eating 1 coconut a day. They're eating 1 coconut and 1 banana a day. So you've got to remember, the wealth is the products. If you can make more stuff in your country, you are wealthier. Doesn't matter how much money you make, that's not wealth. So it's exactly what America's doing, or they mostly just make money. They're not getting wealthy. They're just able to outsource their inflation, which is lucky. But they're not making more stuff, so they're becoming poor. You want to make stuff to get rich. You want more production, and that makes you wealthy. And the money just changes its price to accommodate the extra stuff. So this is because price is not wealth. Do not think of price as the value of something. Price is just the measuring stick. Measuring sticks change. It's the value that's important, which is the products. Okay, so let's have a look. What actually made the islanders more wealthy? Was it increased money or increased produce? And we should all know the answer to this because we know what wealth is now from the first lesson. It's the increased produce. It's not the increased money. Increased money does not make people richer. Okay, so another good example of the nominal confusion people get confused with is houses. If you buy a house at $400,000, then sell it for $500,000. Can you now buy a bigger house? So are you wealthier? No, you're not. I know this from first experience. I did almost this exact same scenario, and I could not buy the house down the block that was bigger because that house was now more expensive too. So you are not getting richer when you sell a house for more money. A lot of people in Australia think this, like, I'm getting wealthy and they get into a lot of debt doing this. Look how much money I've got. Look at the value of my portfolio. It means nothing. It's a number on a screen. You're not getting wealthier. If you can take advantage of this phenomenon of inflation because it's not even to get wealthier. You buy a house, sell it for more because that's what's going up, that's what's expensive, take advantage of that, then transfer all that money into something that's cheap. But that's a long game to play because that thing that's cheap might not ever go up or it might take a very long time to go up. So you can play the inflation game by making money in what's going up, then going into something that's not going up. But it's a long play. But you just got to remember, higher price does not mean you are getting richer because everything else is getting more expensive at the same time. So I've just got down here this disclaimer. Do not be fooled by nominal confusion. Just because the price is going up doesn't mean you are getting richer. Prices going up usually means people are getting poorer. Because now people have to pay $500,000 for a house. That's more labor you have to exert to get that house. And remember, labor is wealth. It is far better to have a house at $400,000. You have to pay a far smaller mortgage. It's a lot less labor to get. A house at $500,000, people are poorer. But if the prices of houses go down, that means people are getting richer. The people who own houses aren't happy, but you don't treat a house as a speculation. That's not what a house is for. A house is something you live. It's a product. It's not an investment. It's not a speculation, but that's what's been treated like. So if your house goes down, who cares? You owned a house. And it's good for your nation. It's good for everyone else because people are getting richer. It means you're getting more houses, that people are able to buy more houses because people are richer. So you want the prices of stuff to go down because it means people are getting richer. All right, so another little disclaimer. A family house is not an asset. A family house is a product. It's something you buy. It's just like a TV. It's just like a laptop. It's something you buy to use. At most, it's a liability. It's a negative. You're paying interest on it. It's not making you money. You're paying for repairs. You're paying for your rates. You're paying for the utilities. It is a liability. It loses you money. But it is a product that you see value in it because you want to live in it. So you're happy to pay for that liability. But it's not an asset. It's an asset for the bank. That mortgage you have, it's an asset for the bank. They're the ones making money off it, not you. You're not making money off your own house, your family house you live in. If you rent out a house, then it's an asset. But it's a small one because the rents are very bad compared to prices these days. But just remember that. Your family house is not an asset. Don't expect to get rich off it. Doesn't happen. That's just inflation. It's nominal confusion. Okay, so let's have a look at two examples. We've got a Ford worker from 1920 and a Ford worker in 2020. I did this a long time ago, about a year ago. These numbers, and I found them in my notebook. And I'm pretty sure I was looking at the state of Washington State, most likely, because it's just one of the most popular state, either that or New York. So if we have a look at this number straight away, and we've got the question, who's richer? Most people will say the Ford worker of 2020. Look how much money he's earning a day. $120 a day? Whew, that's $15 an hour for 8 hours a day. That's 3 times than what this Ford worker worked in one day. Of course the 2020 Ford worker is richer. But is he really? Let's have a look. In 1920, this is the average cost of what the 1920 Ford worker had to buy. A car for $300. A diner meal for $2.70. A movie ticket, 15 cents, and a house just over $6,000. So remember, this is the stuff that's wealth. If you can get a lot of this stuff, you're wealthy. It's not the money. Money isn't wealth. But let's have a look at the 2020 Ford worker. He has to pay a car for almost $25,000. A diner meal for $30. And this is America where it's not as bad. In Australia, diner meal for $30. You found a really good diner. It is a lot more expensive than that in Australia. We're even worse off. So when looking at these numbers, and you want to think how bad it is in Australia, just think it's worse. Almost double as worse. Movie ticket, $12. You're not going to get a movie ticket for $12 in Australia. But in America, it's $12. A house, $720,000. You can get a cheaper house, of course, but back then you could. These were just the medians, I'm pretty sure I grabbed, either that or the average of the house prices. And so that was the average, 720 in that area, and just over 6,000. You can get cheaper, you can probably go down to 3,000. Here you can go down to 400,000, even probably 350. But that's the average. It's a lot more than in 1920. So let's have a look how much stuff they could buy. So let's say, to keep it simple, the Ford worker, his entire yearly salary, he spent it all on cars. That's all he did. For the entire year, every single cent he made, he spent it on cars. He could buy 4.11 cars per year. However, a Ford worker in 2020 can only buy just over 1 car per year. That means the Ford worker in 1920 can buy 4 times more cars. He's looking wealthier right now than the worker today. But he's only getting $5 a day. Let's have a look at the diner meal. You could buy over 1,700 meals per year, and that's for 2. Today, 850 meals. That's it. That's a lot less. Movie tickets, you can buy over 8,000 movie tickets with his entire salary. The Ford worker of today, just over 2,000. That's it. Now let's have a look at the house. If he dedicated his entire savings, his entire wage for a whole year, he could buy 20% of a house. That means in 5 years, he could have a house if he was able to do his entire cent towards a house, to a medium-sized house. Not even an entry house. If he's going for an entry house, it could be double as fast. Ford worker in 2020, 3%. That's it. That means you're having to pay 30 years or so just to try and pay it off, not even including interest. So it's beyond your ability to pay. You're not going to get the average house as a 2020 Ford worker. It's beyond. You're just never getting it. You can't pay it off. You're going to have to go for the cheaper house. Meanwhile, in 1920, getting a medium average house, easily achievable. Not even achievable for a 2020 Ford worker. You are a lot poorer in 2020 because everything else has gone up far faster than what your wage has. Okay, and beyond that, this is just money right now. Just the pay and how much things cost. But there's more things that affect how rich you are. For example, your tax. In 1920, in the same state, you had an income tax of 4% and a state tax of 1%. 5%. That's it. That's all you paid all year. In the same state, you had 12% income tax, 6% state tax, 18%. And just think, in Australia, 18% is low. We're even worse off. A lot of people are paying 30% tax in Australia. We're even worse. We're even poorer. So 18%, that's a huge jump in taxes. You're already poorer because of inflation. You're already poorer because everything costs more. But then you're hit again by losing more money through tax. And it's a bigger percentage because your nominal number is higher as well. So that percentage affects that much more. 5% of $5 a day isn't much. 18% of $120 a day, that's a lot. So the Ford worker's looking very poor. He can barely afford half this stuff, especially the house, and he's getting taxed a lot more. Last thing. How much are you getting paid for putting money in your savings? So 1920 Ford worker, he's able to put a lot of money in his savings account because everything's cheaper. He can put a lot, and he's getting taxed a lot less. And on top of that, he's able to put more in the bank. He's getting paid 7% a year on his money in the bank. Just for doing nothing. He gets 7% because his money was worth something. So he's able to save more. He gets taxed less. And he gets paid on his savings. In 2020, your interest rate is 0%, essentially. So back in 1920, it's a little over 7. Now it's a little over 0. So I noticed did the flat rate. So you have a lot of trouble saving up for stuff. So you're having to get into debt for a car. You're getting into debt for a house, which means you're paying more. You got more interest. And then you're getting taxed a lot more. And you get nothing for your savings. And that's why no one has savings. There's no incentive. Everyone has debt. So you're having to work a lot more to pay for everything. You're just a debt slave. Back then, you're not a debt slave. You're able to save for stuff and buy stuff from your savings. You get money from your savings, so you want to save. You're free because your money's worth something. Back here, it's not at all. You're just going into debt and getting taxed. Barely able to afford anything. And it's going to just get worse and worse and worse. So we've got to remember, 1920, even though you're earning $5 a day, you are far richer than someone in 2020 earning $120 a day. Far richer. Same job as well. Same job. Okay, let's have a look what our lesson for this lesson is. Do not be fooled by nominal confusion. Prices going up doesn't mean you're richer. A lot of the time you want prices to go down because you can afford much more unless it's a credit crunch. That's a spiral you don't want to be in. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going to get into it. So just remember, higher prices does not necessarily mean we're richer. Perfect example is your houses. Wealth is measured by how much goods and services your labor can purchase, not by the money. Measuring stick is not a good way to measure anymore because that measuring stick's constantly changing. It's losing its value. The best constant right now is your labor. How much labor does it take to pay for something? That's how you need to start looking how much things cost. Okay, so action. If something is expensive, sell. If something is cheap, buy. So that goes back to in the houses. If you want to try and make some money, take advantage of the uneven distribution of inflation. Inflation is going somewhere and you think it's going to stop going there, you sell it. And you go somewhere where it's cheap, and if you think inflation is going to go there next. It's not an easy game to play. It's just something if you want to really look into it, do a lot of research. But the good rule of thumb, if it's expensive, sell. If it's cheap, buy. That's exact same thing for stocks. If it's going up, sell. But it's hard to do because everyone wants to keep on it because they think they can make more money. It's better to make some money than none. Okay, last thing, because this is all about inflation. Lock in today's prices. If you think prices are going to go up on something, lock them in. If you think your utilities are going to get more expensive, see if you can pay up for utilities for a whole year at today's price. If you think it's going to get more expensive in a year, that means you save money because you're not having to keep up with the inflation. You're paying at today's prices. Same thing with food. If you buy food today and you think it's going to get more expensive in a year, and you eat that food in a year's time, you essentially bought it discount price. 5-10% how much inflation went up because you locked in the past price. So that's what I mean by lock in today's price. If it's food, stock up on food, eat it later because then you saved about 5-10% or so. Same thing, utilities, try and lock in the price. I don't know if we can do it in Australia. You can look into it, but you can do it in some places. But it's just a good way to look at things, that today's prices are cheaper than tomorrow's prices if you believe inflation is going to keep going rampant. All right, and that's it for today's lesson.